very much for coming on weekend. Means a lot to me, to the organizing committee, right? Everybody. So it shows that how passionate you are about knowing something in their way, and then we are also thinking how we can leverage it in our own own kind of business, or the way how we live life, right? We cannot avoid that for sure, right? It's no more that science fiction. So exactly 70 years ago, in 1956, Alan Turing announced this concept of can-machine thing. There's a paper available, so if you search, it's a simple English paper. It's not like very technical in the sense like it doesn't have those statistics and mathematical formulas which boggles our mind out, right, if you're not coming from that background. It is a simple concept. He just threw that concept, and he also did some real tests. It's outcome of the test which he did, which is known as Alan Turing test. And the test says that there is a block wall, and then other side of the wall there are two things, one human, one computer. The others, this side there's a human who is asking question, both of them answering. Now can you differentiate what human is answering versus what computer is answering? That was the test he did back then, when computer was almost like nothing as you compare it, right? So that then he came up with the paper, and then the concept and the terminology AI got coined, and then fast forward in the 70s when statistics become the mainstream mathematical thing, it actually had a lot of formulas, theories around that, which we could do in pen and paper. These are long exercises, right? But we did not have those machines ready for us to do those faster calculations. The computation was not that fast enough, right? Fast forward in 90s, exactly around 97 or so, the first machine learning concept came in, where it said that we're not going to write program anymore for this AI. Or until then, people used to write program for AI, right? It's a workflow, logic, you have to write by yourself. Says that we will give the system to learn from the system. So that's the concept of machine learning, which came in 97. But actually the first machine learning was announced or launched in the production for the commercial use in 2017, when the NVIDIA came up with this GPU concept, right? So the machine learning tool became real in the production. People could use that in their environment. So people could use that in their environment and then do things, right? And then with the concept of machine learning, the deep learning came in, which says that it is not a great analogy of talking about like how our neurons in the brain works versus the deep learning works, because I have a friend who is into neurology, and then I spoke to him. He first away stops me saying that it's not brain. This is not how brain works. People don't understand how brain works. So let's not put that analogy. Lay that, you divert that, you club it together, that's good enough, right? So it is exactly that way. So if you hear people talking about the analogy of human brain, how it works, it's not that, okay? So it is like a tree. So you fan out, you fan in, basically that's the concept which happens, and it's a very complex network which can help do that. And that's the foundation of what we know today is generative AI, which eventually made popular by the OpenAI through its application called ChatGPT. So ChatGPT is the first interface which all of us enjoyed using. Behind the scene there was generative AI model, which actually helped us do things which we never imagined we would achieve that way, right? So so OpenAI is an organization who generated that interest among about us beyond academics, beyond technology, right? General public can actually enjoy the power of generative AI, right? And then start thinking, how can I use it Because first, those teachers, they came up with the idea like, can I create questions, can I create answer sheet, can I create answer keys using this because it has got knowledge from its memory, textbooks, the fundamental sciences did not change much, so I could use that memory. It's not a connected information. So how can I use that, right? It's kind of like tool given to you, right? Tool given to us. So now we have spent a couple of years. Literally, I remember like when the first production deployment happened for my customer back in 2023 using only generative AI. There was no concept of agent. That was back in 2023. From then till today, it's more than 3 years. When we are talking about that, we are thinking like, we will use generative AI for sure, but we will use it little differently. And that little differently is agent. So when I ask this question to anybody, what is agent? I get many answers. Most of them are correct answers. But I try to simplify things for myself, and when I speak about it, I also try to give that simplified vision. It may or may not be correct, so we can always discuss about that, but I feel system, which we call agent, is something which uses large language model and set of tools to perform certain activity. So the word tools is very important here, right? What are tools? To simplify that, there are a set of functions. Say that when you send 1 plus 1, it will always give you 2, not 11, because it can also give you 11 if it considers 1. Each one of them has string. In computer, you can concatenate them and it becomes 11. It's not mathematics, it is a string concatenation, right? So it can also be 11, it can be 2, right? So I want this model, which is mostly probabilistic, because these models are probabilistics, to give me always deterministic answer. And this is very important in a business scenario when you are doing complex, let's say, accounting calculation. You can't give 3 different answers 3 times. It has to be the same if the input is sort of similar. You can provide 3 parameters in 3 different ways, but it should give you the same answer again and again and again. So that's the deterministic nature of the system we are talking about. Large language model is not deterministic. To make it deterministic, we need those business logics written somewhere in a conventional way, right? Where it will follow those formula, it will go one by one, it will check things and it will give the answer, right? So it is outside of the large language model's memory and capability to call those additional functions, we call them tools. So the agent is now with large language model. So agent cannot be without large language model. That's the first condition, with large language model. And then that becomes kind of like the standard. Is it like what would we come on? Yeah. So it's going in a sleep. Alright. So basically it's calling those functions again and again. So
sorry, but it's anyway not visible.
I'm not going to show this for now. It's just a display. I don't have slide. I don't use slide for the presentation. So just just ignore it. So maybe you can see my list. This one. That makes you comfortable. All right. So what I essentially mean to say is that think from that perspective that you are not only using large language model, but you use large language model with your business logic to implement that large language model's generative capability, like composability, and then perform certain business tasks. Now these business tasks can be complex business tasks in the sense like it can actually, the set of tasks can be, it can be one task with a very complex algorithm, right? It could be anything. But at the end of the day, they are performing something which is tested and accepted by the system, right? By the audience or the end users. So that is where we need to think about how we can leverage this large language model. We no more use large language model to write poetry or short stories, right? It's not that time anymore. We can try it out, but that's not the real business use case, right? The real business use case, yes. So
can there also be scenarios where the tools themselves are using either an LLM or any kind of model and thereby being non-deterministic or giving a non-deterministic response?
Yes, a very good question. So the question is that the tool we are using, can they also use large language model? Yes, they can use large language model. Let's say if you are in the context of my customer where they use a lot of LLM models for specialized for computational chemistry, they call it inside those tools to give the answer back. But then you are basically using those independently. So, and these tools are not tied to your agent workflow in a deterministic way, in the sense like you don't say which tool to call when. That is the intelligent part of the LLM, where it figures out based on the input you provide, which is a natural language input, which is a simple plain English text. It picks up the tool when it requires to pick up the right tool. And that is basically debatable, like what is the right tool, how can I determine that it's the right tool. That's when we do the testing, right? So it's basically doing those activity to figuring out which tool to call. So for example, if I build an agent to perform some activity where I get the information about some author, their biography in a book, which I have an example which I'll show you, you will see that there are two agents performing parallelly and then collecting the input and then giving me back the output, right? So it's kind of like giving small work across. So when you think about the team who arranged this event today, there are multiple people who are doing that. Now, not everybody who is doing everything. They have given the task to individual, right? You make sure that audio visual system is working. Somebody has been given an assignment to arrange the delicious lunch, as we call it, right? So that's the kind of task you are kind of giving, but it is a collaborative activity, right? Because at the end of the day, they can come together and then give the output on this day to make this event successful. So it's think of like agent is a small task given to individual tools through functions. Now, fast forward, right? We have got many SDKs, these generative AI models, be it Google, AWS, Microsoft, OpenAI, Anthropic. You call any provider who creates this model and then makes it available for us to use, right? Because you need to understand that these are really large models. They need a cluster of machines, right? And it is not possible for us to really run that huge infrastructure on our own. So it is not financially beneficial for small scale or mid-scale organization. Even for a large scale organization, they don't even think of doing that. They use the capacity. It's like leveraging the airport for landing your flight. You don't build the airport every time you buy a new flight, right? It's not practical. So you basically use that airport where you land or fly out, and that's where these people basically provide the infrastructure. So these are these public cloud providers, they are the infrastructure provider to run that large language model in their environment, and we get the endpoint through an REST API, basically. So there are multiple SDKs available in the market today to consume that API, right? You have get OpenAI SDK, you have a very popular LangChain. Microsoft has something called semantic kernel and autogen. Now, which I'm going to show you is something a very simplified one called Agent Framework. It's a SDK which is not yet released. It's an RC release candidate, which will be released pretty soon. Once it is released, you can build an agent using that in production, right? So these are all different kind of SDKs. Now, at the end of the day, you are calling the same model. Depending on what is the skill set and knowledge available within the team, you choose your SDK. And then you find whether it is good enough for you to use that SDK or it's feature missing, and then you switch to another SDK. So that is up to the team to decide on which. But I'm going to show you what this agent framework really does. But let me first tell you what I explained to you in theory, what it means by tool and what it means without tool, right? So let me try to create an agent in front of you. So what you see in my screen now, let me know if you can see it. So I'm just trying to make it a little bigger, right? Don't look into the already created agent, so I'm going to show you how to create an agent. Now, as I said, like to create an agent, you need one large language model. Now, you cannot really choose any model because you got to first see the model, whether that has got an agentic capability. That means the model has to have a reasoning capability. Otherwise, it will not be able to select the tool intelligently. If it doesn't have, there is not agent-ready model. For example, GPT 3.5 is not agent-ready model. So if you have a GPT 3.5 deployment and you try to create an agent, it will not complain, but the agent will not work. Okay? Because it cannot identify which tool to call. In fact, before agent, the LLM itself came a tool calling option. So if you see the older presentation somewhere, you will see people using LLM and then calling some function inside the LLM, like weather function or something like that, when you see those demos. So that's the same concept, right? So you need a model. So let me just give an agent. I'll say Devon, just a name. And then when I create this agent, it will just simply go ahead and create. And a couple of things I want to show you. First of all, it will give you the list of models I can pick and choose. So it is the place where I'm using it is known as Microsoft Foundry, where basically you can do pretty much everything around this generative AI. So I have a few deployments, but if you want to select some other models, you can pick up those models available in this list. I think we have got more than a few thousand models available. Both Microsoft, non-Microsoft, OpenAI, Mistral, Llama, Grok, whatever you call like, Anthropic, you have them available. When you select them, there is an infrastructure behind the scene where this model is running. We call inferencing, right? And it's a huge infrastructure, GPU-based huge infrastructure. There are small models which you can run locally. So if you have a GPU machine, those who play game must be having a GPU machines. You can even run those small models. Llama is one such small model in your local machine, right? In fact, in scenarios where we need some edge cases where we cannot have the internet connectivity, we cannot use this inferencing model which is hosted in the cloud, we use those small models deployed locally and then run locally and take the basic decisions and then take action. So you can also think perspective in those edge cases. So for example, deep inside the oil field where there is no internet connectivity, how do you run this intelligent system to identify some of the notifications you get over there through your sensor information. So I'm going to use the GPT-4.1 mini, which is a bit cheaper. I'm not using any of its data because I don't care about it. I'm using its reasoning capability and capability to figure out which tool to call when, right? So that's why it is there. Now this instruction is very important instruction. So here you say you are a helpful agent, you answer cheerfully. So this description needs to be as elaborate as possible. Right? I just made it short. Now if you notice here below, right, I don't have any tools added, right? You can add tools, but let's not add any tool. So if you just save it. So this time this agent is a simple element. It is not an agent as part of the definition we discussed. So I can say, hi there. I start my conversation with that, and then because it is a cheerful agent, it will just actually give me an answer, how can I brighten your day today? It's a kind of tone I set to the instruction, right? So you get to see that. Now I'm going to ask one question, which is like, what is the date today? Because this is a model which is trained some time back. It's a pretty old model, by the way, as compared to the model lifetime of what we have seen. If I ask this question, it should not give me the right answer, okay? As per my understanding, let's see. So what is the date today? So if I ask this question, and that is the problem, right? It doesn't say that I don't have answer. This is where you can also add a little bit of instruction in the description, and then can add those guardrails, what you can see, to keep it grounded. So it's giving me the date from its memory, which is not corrected. Now I want to make sure that this agent gives me the right date. Even if you ask about the IPL T20 match, which is now happening, it will not be able to provide me an answer, right? Let's try that. What was the IPL T20 match yesterday? So for it, yesterday means 10th June. Huh? So then, I don't exactly know, like, see, 10th June, because today is 11th, so 10th June, right? So ESPN Pre-Info is asking me, so it's good, right? It's telling me that I don't have answer. Sometimes it doesn't hallucinate. But it's not solving my purpose, right? It is not giving you the current information. Now, to get the current information, there are few things people try to do. Used to think that they will retrain the model. That means they will feed with all the current information, which is never current in any given point in time, because the current information is a constant flow of information, right? So you can't really do that. So it is not feasible. It takes days. It takes huge infrastructure, right? Unless it is very specialized, like healthcare, which you don't want to give it to public, or you've never had that public information. People generally don't do that, and it's also not feasible. It's not doable. There's a better way to do that, right? We call RAG, which is not the part of this conversation. So I'm not going into that. However, you can have the additional input coming into your system from external sources like web search. Let's show you with an existing tool, like how web search can help. So if I go into the tool, there are a bunch of tools. So I'm going to use this web search. And it's going to be ask me like which web search I want to use. So if I have any custom web search like Google or anything which I've got key, I can configure it here. I'll just go with the big search which takes automatically, right? I don't have to bring in any key, makes my life simple. Now if I just go ahead and start a new conversation and I say hi, it must give me the similar cheerful answer. I did not make any changes, so let me save it. First I save, and then I say new chat, and then I say hi. Okay. So it is going to give me the similar cheerful answer. Now, what is the date today? I asked this question. It's going to give me the April 4, 2026, because it is now able to do the web search. It understands that it cannot fetch the information from its memory. It goes and finds the date search, does a date search, and gives me back. And everything you do, it will do the same thing, right? So it is actually fetching the information which is relevant for the query I am asking, and then adding it as part of the prompt, right? So it's making my prompt a little bigger. So if you see the log, you will see that my prompt will be a little bigger. It is not just the prompt that I'm asking, but it's also fetching the search information which is getting. Now I can also ask the IPL T20, so what was the match yesterday for IPL T20? If I ask this question, it will probably fetch me some information. Yes. A lot actually. Yeah, so it is giving me the date 3rd April, and then CSK and Punjab Kings had a nice match. So it gave me all the relevant information through web search. So it is not in the large language model's memory. It is coming from some other data source. It could be an internal system. Yes.
The reason is getting a correct response is because they changed the session and added the web search.
First I added the web search, and then I initiated a new session.
New session.
Yes.
Old session does not provide the.
May or may not. I did not want to take the chance here in this demo because I have a limited time. But ideally you should be loading the agent once you make any changes. It's like refreshing the system. Yeah.
So does it make the web tool call every single time for every prompt? Or does it do a comparison between what it already has as an information and then compares with?
So it's a very good question. Let me see what exactly has happened here. So if you notice here, the search I made here, right? I think this is the question. This is the second question, where this is the question I asked, and it is calling the web search because it doesn't have that memory. But if you see this message, hi, it immediately gave me response, right? Without any web search. So it depends. As I said, like agent is not a workflow, predefined workflow. It is an intelligent system which can decide which tool to call when. So if it decide not to call the web search, it will not call the web search.
So it already had that date, right? For example, a date of 2024. Correct? Let's say if I ask it like what is the date today, it would already have the date of 2024.
Maybe it got it from the creation date. So there are many metadata of the agent, right? So which can be an input, right? So as I said, like sometimes it looks like a black box, but imagine that you are not telling the agent to call tool if the question is A, call tool 2 if the question is B. You are not saying that. There's nowhere. And like agent will add it. Sometimes this is why you need a lot of use cases and test cases to try things out to see whether it is really doing what it is supposed to be doing. It is not getting diverted and confused by the thing. So that's why the name of the functions or the tools which you call is very important. If you may have the similar name function, it get confused. So the metadata, when you write those tools by yourself for the agent to call them, you need to provide enough metadata information to identify which tool to call when and how to place those parameters. Because at the end of the day, they are simple functions. Okay, so you just send a couple of parameters and you have to define what are the parameters and how to identify those parameters. So it's called metadata of the function which basically makes this LLM call those tools whenever they're required. Right? So you see the web search is getting called only when it requires some current date, otherwise it is not calling the web search. So this is the whole session of the new agent which I created, so which is what all you see from the logs.
Excuse me, I follow up on that. So what if the model already has some data, the same question, because it can be 2 different years, right? So what if the model already has some data, so it can also confuse and give the old data, right? When we ask about
It can. It can. So you can also give this as an instruction. Say that do not give any information from your memory. Always do the web search and give me. Use the tool to get the data information. You can also write that in simple English in the description. So that's why when you build an agent, this description is very, very important. Because this is what it identifies like how your agent will behave. Right? It's a system prompt at the end of the day. Right? So and I'll show you a couple of other examples. Now I added this web search, I'll remove this web search. Okay. And I add one more tool. And this is very interesting tool. This tool is going to go ahead and generate I'll come back to you in a minute. Okay. So I'm just going to add a file and let me show you that file. So imagine that it's a sales information, which is a dummy sales information from a company called Contoso, which is a Microsoft registered company for demo, so that nobody can sue Microsoft. And then you have got, yes, it's literally for that reason. So you have got this region, and then you have got product, category, and revenue. Okay, and then year and month. Though I don't know how many of you have heard this term called Metro UI. Microsoft once released that for Windows 8, but there was a company already with that name, so there's a big hassle around that. So we need to be very careful about it. So you just see that you go down and then it's hundreds of records, right? Now if you have been given this file to do a task, right? You can pretty much do everything you want. So let me just quickly add this system prompt, which somewhere I might have saved. So let me just check where I have that. Should be somewhere. Yes. If I show you this system prompt now, I'm saying that you are a sales agent, and then helpful friendly. All you get the sales data from a CSV file, See, my description is becoming a bit more complex, right? Example region, I'm also giving what kind of data you get, and then I'm also telling that don't give me answer if you don't have the answer. You don't have to give me the answer. So I'm kind of grounding this model response to what it's supposed to be given. So I'm making it more domain specific. So I just update that description, whatever it is there. Now I save it. I just load a new session, and then I say that hi, and I'm gonna just make it a little bigger. Not sure if that can be shown. And then if I say that how can I assist you with the sales data today, so it is telling you like I'm not just a general agent, I'm not giving you a good morning, good evening kind of response back. I'm going to give you specific to what I'm supposed to be giving. So I am a domain agent, which is a very specific task. Okay, so tell me the sales in EU. I'm not writing Europe, I'm just trying it out. So EU is not there in the data, right? So it is able to identify that EU means Europe. And if you see that, it is actually writing the Python data frame. Those who have tried that Python data frame, it's a way to manipulate the CSV file, right? So you can actually load it in as a structured data in the memory and then do the query. It is actually writing that code for me. So this is called code interpreter tool, which is by default available, which you can leverage, right? You see here it is loading this file which I have loaded over here, the Contoso sales revenue, and then after that it is giving me an output like 1199207. No matter however you ask this question to get the result of Euro, it is going to give you this number, always this number, right? This is the deterministic nature of the tool, because it is now actually loading that in the memory, doing the Python query and then fetching the information. It will always be right unless you go and make the changes in the file, right? Now, I'm not happy with that, so let's say I say, show me in category. So you can also do a spelling mistake, still figure it out. So you can see that because it's a higher dimension thing. So you see that it is now giving me the breakdown of the sales happened in each category wherever in the region Europe, right? Now, this is not something I want to show it to my boss. I want to present it in a presentable format. So I say that show me in chart. All this is what it's doing. If you see here, it's actually writing some code for me, right? Now it knows that I'm in the context of Europe. I did not mention that show me the sales in Europe as per category, because it's a continuous conversation, right? It has got its memory. It can fetch the relevance from that and then do something, right? That's why it looks so natural. Now I say show me in chart. Now you see that there will be a code which will try to be created with using matplotlib. So matplotlib is to plot the data in a quick fashion, and it is actually using that. And if you see there is a file which got created, I can just go ahead and download. And if you are building a website using this agent, you can display it in the display. So this is what it is generating me for based on. I can even say that show me the total value on top of each bar and all these things. I can also tell those things so that my total sales in each category will be displayed on top of each of the bars, right? I can also say that, let's say, make it pie. I'm not even saying pie chart. So I'm saying make it pie. So it can even understand that what means, what I mean by the pie, and the file is getting generated. There's one more file, so let me just open. So it should be like this, right? So this is what the tool is doing, right? And tool is doing based on my natural language input, which we sometimes call prompt. And that is deciding what method to call when and how to react on that. This is all happening behind the scene. I'm not saying anything. I say that this is the bunch of functions you get. So the code interpreter tool comes with a bunch of options, so it will pick up from there. Now with this, there is a caution I wanted to add here. When you supply a set functions in your agentic system, remember that every time you write a prompt, it sends that metadata along with your prompt. So it is very huge. You need to make sure that you filter it. There are way in SDK to filter the method and send only the method which are relevant. So for example, if it is a PostgreSQL tool, which is available as MCP server nowadays, that comes with a lot of different activities, a DB activity, a search activity, update activity, anything of that sort. So if you know, like you are doing fetch record, you don't want to load those DB activity or update activity or modify or synchronization kind of activities. So you can say in the agent that filter my tool call only for the search activity. So it will probably give you 15 methods and then add it as part of the prompt. So when a prompt runs, it picks up from the 15, not 150 methods. So 150 methods means 150 methods metadata, basically. So it can really make your prompt large, and soon you will find that token is exhausted. That means the total number of token will increase, right? So imagine that sending more character means more tokens, right? So you basically have to be careful when you use these tools. These are powerful tools, but don't overuse it because it can kill the whole system. Now, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to remove this tool also. First, remove the file, tool, everything is removed.
One question with respect to the tool. I mean, does it also show you that what vector database it uses, what was the embedding and all, or is it being abstracted in this?
There is no vector database here.
How does it convert the CSV into the code?
Through Python, data frame.
Oh, so there is no vector.
Good old Python data frame. There is no vector. So I have not uploaded this into a vector store and let that store embed it and then doing something. I am just uploading the CSV file into memory, and it is using the Python data frame to load that in its memory and writing a query. So that code part is done by the tool.
Just a follow-up question. So, but for like understanding that EU stands for Europe or understanding spelling mistakes, it's still referring to its LLM. Is that right?
Sorry.
For understanding that EU stands for Europe or for understanding
Yes,
the spelling
yeah.
mistake, it's still using its LLM.
Yes, yes.
And this is what RAG isn't it? Or
No.
This is not. How is this different
This is
from
not
RAG?
RAG.
How is this different from RAG? Because we are also like giving it some contextual information and then asking on the basis of that. So how different this is from RAG?
So think of it like I am a business analyst, you are the business owner. You're coming to me and saying that you should tell me what was the sales happened yesterday. So I go back to my system, I write some SQL query and get the information, put it in the Excel file and give it to you.
Right.
This is exactly doing that.
Right.
Right? So it is exactly writing the exact query to fetch the exact record. So it is not like loading the memory in the vector database, first doing the embedding and loading in memory and then doing the hybrid search like semantic. No, it is not doing. I'm not doing that here. But you can achieve that too. But imagine this is a very deterministic ask. Now in the deterministic ask, you don't do those vector embedding because you don't want to know like whether it will give you the right result or not.
So RAG would involve that vector embedding also.
Yes, it requires vector embedding. Yes. I'm going to add one more example. Let me show you the MCP. So all you saw are the tools locally available, right? So I'm going to get this instruction. So you're a helpful agent. You use Microsoft Learn MCP server to get your input. Limit your response to only information verified by Microsoft Learn server. So I'm saying that don't give me any answer. Okay, I don't want you to act anything like that. And then I just copy this instruction. What I'm going to do is that I am going to save it here. And I save and load. So this time I'm loading an MCP server which is hosted somewhere. So it is not function written within my code base or in the context of my agent system. It is somewhere hosted. I'm just using that. So that's the concept of hosted tools basically. MCP is nothing but concept of hosted tools. You think of like you are leveraging the same tool in multiple systems, but you are just having it deployed somewhere single so that it's easy to manage. So I say new and then I'm going to ask hi. Let's see what it gives me answer. It's not a great prompt, but it tests the system that it is ready for the Microsoft technology question. Okay. Tell me the weather today in the room. If I ask this question, sorry, I do not have the information. Ask me about the Microsoft technology. So this is the power of system prompt, which is the description. Which is kind of, I am telling that you don't divert too much. You are being given one task, that is the Microsoft Learn MCP. So fetch only information from Microsoft. Even if you ask something which is not part of that, it is sorry, I couldn't find it. So it is very, very focused and to the point and doing only one task. Right? There were some questions coming up. I was sorry, I was just take that. Yeah. Can you use the mic so that other people can?
Hi. You gave the analogy of analyst. So analyst has a context of which table to look for and what queries to write, what fields to be selected from the table. The same analogy, I think a vector database would be required if a CSV is there, because CSV would come with some context. So a Python query.
No, I never said that vector database is not required. In this example, I am not using vector database.
But it would, like the context interpretation.
My example, demo, is just a basic fundamental
It does
demo.
have
It
CSV.
doesn't have vector database, that is what my comment is.
But how do you interpret the context?
So it's only single file, single CSV, one table.
But CSV does have some
You say
context.
that you need to know which table. There is no which table, it's only one table.
But obviously CSV would come with some columns and
Black
fields.
scientist.
The column should be, it will never work with unstructured data. It will always work with structured.
It is a structured output and only one simple CSV. There is no multiple different CSVs you are supplying. In the context where you have a dynamic CSV coming in from different sources, you don't have a structure, then you probably think of doing the vector analysis. This sample I have not used that, but I will use it. You can use it.
There might be limit on the CSV side for the floating.
So this code, this thing 16 MB I think. Yeah, so the code interpreted is 16 MB.
So both purposes is happening on the memory only.
Can you just pass the mic?
Maybe you can finish the question.
Yeah, just started.
So this whole calculation is happening on a memory only, right?
Yes, it's all on.
And how it is communicating with the this GPT model, right? Somewhere this tool might be hosted, right? You are passing this file as a parameter to that particular code interpreter. How it is reading the file and putting in a exact information what user want. So how this is communicating with our English prompt what we are sending and the file which we uploaded. How this architecture is happening on behind the scene.
So if I may, I just loaded that. So if I just cleaned up. But otherwise, you will see that a prompt comes and it takes a call whether to call that tool or not. Because when I said hi, the tool was also configured. But it did not call the tool because it never felt the need of calling the tool. But when I said that tell me the sales in Europe region, it then decided to call the tool which has the file in its memory.
So how this communication is happening actually in a behind the scene means how this GPT is calling configuration, like how we have a set of like black box for us. Can you please help me on?
So when you send a prompt,
Uh,
a large language model has a reasoning capability. That's why I said that you pick up the large language model which has a reasoning capability. It looks into your thing and breaks it into small pieces of task. It identifies that I need to call a tool which is available with me. How does it decide that to call a tool? Because the tool's metadata is with the prompt. So the prompt has the metadata. So you basically, it matches that and finds, oh, okay, I have a tool, so let me call it. If you do not configure the tool, it will never call the tool.
so that metadata is configured with the GPT model, or like we are sending this
Configured with your agent.
agent. Okay.
Yeah. GPT model is a readable, read-only thing.
Okay.
You don't change anything. You just supply additional surface information. You say that you have your memory, you have a data fine, but you also have this thing with you. It's like buying a new car and then adding few accessories into the car, right? So you are adding those accessories into your car.
Got it. Yeah. Thank you. And can you please zoom a little bit so we can see from the web?
Yeah, why don't you come in front? Because there are empty chairs.
Yeah.
Yeah, please. The zoom means I will lose the screen space and then it will be difficult for me to move around.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, just to show you a quick demo that I thought of showing you this one. How much time do I have? 15 minutes. What is the latest?
No.
So I'm going to just ask this question. What is the latest OpenAI model available in Foundry? So it is telling me that the agent wants to call Microsoft Learn MCP server. Now I need to say approve. And then when I say approve, it is asking me to do this. Now this is because it is going out of the system. When you have this web search and then code interpreter, they are part of the system. Right? They are basically inside the agent system. But this is an external system. So you have to say that always approve this tool, and every time it will not ask me, or always approve all Microsoft Learn MCP tools. Right? So it is kind of like just to make sure that it is not doing anything which is not approved or accepted. So I'll say always approve this. And then anything which needs to be called from this will get me called. So the request has been approved, and you will see the models which is all coming from the Microsoft Learn document, which is an official document, and then it will also give you the reference, so you can go and check the announcement, all these things. So it's pretty helpful information if you would like to know something quickly from that. So you can see that it's getting you the list and also giving you the links where you can actually go and find more information. It's kind of like referencing that. Another question, somebody in front here.
I just have a question. Is there a way to kind of deterministically set some hierarchical rules? For example, let's say if there is some sensitive information that I don't want a particular user to see, or maybe there is a role-based access on what user can see what information. Is there a way to put that in a deterministic way? I mean, I can always put that in the instruction saying that this is what it happens, but then it's still probabilistic, right? So yeah, that's my question.
Okay. So in the context of where the data access is important, right? Which means that who has got access to what? For example, typical manager-employee scenario, a manager can see the vacation information for all the employees under his or her reporting, right? However, I cannot see my colleagues' available vacation details because I am the colleague here, right, in the same line. So how do you identify that? So when you extract the data from this hierarchical database system where it is already implemented, like your HR system, when you open the HR system, you only see your information. If you are not a manager, if you are a manager, you see the report, your information plus others' information. So this is a system built using hierarchical access. So you use your single sign-on, that's corporate login, and this identifies that and figures it out. In the large language model context, in the agentic context, we always say that you don't extract the data from that data source and keep it outside in a vector store. Because if you do that, you lose that hierarchical access control list. What do? You leverage some MCP server or API call to make those calls into the system. So you have a bot which says what is your employee ID. You give the ID and then it fetches the information. So you say that give me the information of XYZ person's vacation information. So you'll go and make the system and you'll get a rejection from the system because you are not allowed to see that. It cannot fetch you that. So you have to control that from the source itself, not from the prompt. Because if you write, there could be different ways to jailbreak that prompt, right? So that's what we call jailbreaking the prompt. So you can actually fetch the information. So never ever expose any sensitive data outside of its core data source. Use the API call to make instant call into the system and make them as a tool into your agentic system so that agent can decide when to call that method. But do not copy the data outside, because if you copy the data, you lose everything. Then it's all under your purview to control. I think he was about to ask a question so for a long time, so I'll just take one question from him.
So this question you might be covering in your next part, but I was just curious. So whatever information this is providing us, is there any way to validate that information? Like whether this model is providing the correct information or
Eval, yeah. We have that option available in Foundry. There are tools available, by the way. You have to use tools. So there's an evaluation tool available in Foundry where you can do the evaluation. Like you say that if I send this prompt, it should give me this answer. So it's kind of like cases you create, and then you run them, and then it rates how much accurate. It never will be the exact output, but if it is close, so it can match whatever the LLM output is or agent output is versus what you're supposed to be getting as an output. If it is close enough, it will give you a percentage how close enough it is, and then tell you so that you can build the confidence. So when you decide which model to select, you basically do the eval against multiple model using the same use case, like test cases basically. So you give a prompt, you give an output, and then you build a set. That's called evaluation. It's tool available. I think you have third-party tools also available. You supply those LLMs, and then it will give you those output. Before you build the system, right? Because if you build the system, you already spend a lot of time. And then,
So we build this agent. Is there a way to add inside this agent itself?
No, it is outside. It is outside actually. The eval is outside. Eval is somewhere here. I have to. Eval. So I have not done anything. The library. You can create an evaluation, right? And then you will catalog. There are a bunch of things you can do over here, right? So you want to test the racism and all these things, right? You can also evaluate, like whether this model is having those guardrails to protect those things, right? Because you cannot shoot off any outcomes which can damage your brand very much. So I'll just go back swiftly into my demo because I don't have much time, but let me show you whatever I have done. You have a full control in the code. So let me show you some code. So those who are not Python developer, just ignore that. But if you are a Python developer, you imagine that what I created an agent without a tool, something would look like this in an agent framework. So let me just show you this in a bit bigger screen. So you see that what I have done, I just use this agent framework as my library, and then I send this system prompt which I was giving that in as a description, right? And then I say what is the date today. So if I run this, let's say over here, you will run 00 or 00. Yeah. If I run this, it is going to give me the output saying that because there is no tools added. Let's say it's saying that October 30, 2023. Okay, so hold it because there is no tool added. Now, when I add a tool, which basically is a function, and I show you what that tool means. Now, I'm not using web search because to get a date, I don't need a web search. I can just get the system data and then show that. So exactly this is get date. Now, when you write this kind of function by yourself, you use this tool information, this small information on top. This is how agent identifies that this method is not just a simple method, it's method for me to get. So, and you provide enough metadata information. So this is the metadata I'm talking about. So it says that you get the current date in the form of this. You can add, if you are accepting parameter, you can also have to take what kind of data type it is and what that parameter means and how do you fetch that parameter from the input. So if somebody is typing 6-letter input, that is an employee ID. I tell that in the tool, in the metadata. That's how you identify that you are typing employee information, right? So you just return the date. Very simple tool. And if you see here, I'm just sending the prompt, right? And then I'm also attaching the tool called getDate. So this is a list of tools you can add. It's an array. So if you have multiple such tools, functions there, you can add them over here. Now these are all in the same file. For the demo purpose I have written, but ideally when you build the agentic system in the production, you keep them separate, right? You can even host them as an MCP server if you have too many tools for a specific activity, right? So I just show you that, and then this is a very simple SDK, by the way. You see that how many lines of code? 29. But if you use the GitHub Copilot, it will create 10,000 lines. Huh? So you can see that I don't have tools here at this point configured. So what I can do in the agent, I don't have the tools, but if I ask this question, UV1, 0, 1. Huh? Line number 19, get it. Good catch. So I don't have the tool configured yet. So it still says October 15, 2023, right? I add the tool here. And then I run it again. Somewhere it is thinking. It is April 4, 2026 because now I call the tool as part of my agent configuration. So that's how you add your own function. It can be a very simple function. It can be just a SQL query fetching one information from a database. Yeah.
What's happening? That string will be passed to the prompt. Let's say if I have 10 tools, for 10 tools the description will be passed to the prompt.
Yeah, it will be part of the prompt.
What's happening on line 20? Is that agent actually running locally or is it interfacing with something that's defined in the Foundry and executing remotely?
No, there is no Foundry. So this is a pure SDK I'm calling.
Okay.
And I'll show you what is there in my hidden file. So it is basically I'm using a GitHub model. This is a very interesting one. Those who are thinking that I don't have Azure subscription, AWS subscription, how can I try that? You can go to github.com. If you have an email address, you can create a GitHub ID. And then you get a GitHub model. You can even bring the GitHub model. So if you see here, I am using the Foundry model here, but you can also use the GitHub model to load that. Very easy to do that. So it basically has got a model and an API key, and then I'm just mentioning model. That's all I have here. And then in the code here in the agent, I just have this util loaded through which I create the client. So first I create the client, which is where again going back, this, so OpenAI chat client, where I pass the base URL, which can be any URL, anywhere, wherever you want this model to be deployed, API key and the deployment name. That's all, 3 things.
So the Foundry is required only to host the model really?
Yes, Foundry is required only to host the model, but you can also use the GitHub model. You don't need Foundry. Agent framework is an SDK, independent SDK. You can actually have your LLM in GCP also and call that. So it doesn't really matter where that is.
Excuse me, before adding the tool, we got 2 different days, right? October 30 and October 15. So why we have changed?
Hallucination. I don't have answer.
So it's because it's probabilistic or it's because of the probabilistic answer or?
I don't know like which one you picked and why. Because it's wrong answer. To me it is wrong answer. And I know it will be wrong answer. So I will make sure that it doesn't really bring anything from external.
So quick question here. So
I'll just quickly show because I have got only 1 minute left. So what I'm going to do quickly, I'm going to show you a concept of workflow. Okay? So when you have these agents created, that could be many agents, and you want to build some flow. Now imagine a use case where you send an author name and it gets you a little bio of the author and the major works of the author. Now I built 2 agents. One is to fetch the bio of the author, another is to fetch the major works of the author. Just for the demo purpose, and I'll show you how that works. And to show that, I need to actually show it in a dev UI. So let me remember what was that. 1010 workflow basic 11 I think. Okay. dev UI. Hopefully this will pop up. If the browser and the for, okay. So you see here, this is what the visual representation of what is going to happen over here. So I have a prompt, which is the dispatcher, and it's going to send this query into two different agents. One will find the biography of the author, and another will find the major works of the author. And once they are done, they will combine these two output and give me this. So this is the workflow. So imagine that you have a limitation in terms of LLM's this thing metadata. Sorry, not metadata, the token limit. You can use two different LLMs in two different agents to fix that, so that they are balanced, correct? Which is load balancing. This is another way of thinking load balancing, right? And then you get that. So let me just configure and run.
It's also improving the efficiency because we are doing tasks parallelly.
Yes. You can also do a sequential task if you wish to. So there are multiple different workflows available. So you see, did I spell correct?
Was LLM routers being used here?
Huh?
LLM routers.
So this is the workflow. So this is how you build the workflow. Now I showed you how to build independent agent. And this is where you build the workflow. Right? This is a dev UI. It's not the application you see. It is just to visualize what is happening. So you can see that both of the execution has happened. You can even see the output for each of the agent. So which basically is going to give you, let's say, author's bio. So it will talk about who the Shakespeare was, where he born. So it is a raw output, right? And then final output is here. Now the final output is a little formatted one because I wanted this to be formatted, and you can see that. I'm not sure if it is visible to you. So you have a biography at the beginning, right? And then if you notice here at the bottom, it will have this list of famous works, right? Which has got Hamlet, Macbeth, and so on and so forth. So all of us know, right? But this is an outcome of two different agents running in parallel because you fan them out and then fan them in. Now we can also have sequence. And when you have sequence, in a typical approval scenario, you may need a human in the loop. You can also do that. So somebody has to go and open their mail and say approve. Then only it will move. So for example, if you apply for a vacation, it automatically books the flight ticket. Let's assume that. But it will only be booked if it is approved. So you apply in the system, but the system is still waiting for someone to come and approve it. Once it approved, then it calls another agent to book the flight ticket for whatever destination you mentioned, and you move on along with that. So it's human in the loop also is possible and doable. And this is also important, right? It's there. So this is how you can see that, and also in the event and traces, you will see that what exactly happened, right? So all these activities quite transparent over here. So all these activities are going to go ahead and show. Now quickly, just to show you how they look very complicated in the scenarios where I might have this already running. Yeah. So if I go back to agents, there is a workflow preview UI. You can also build it in workflow. So that's a group chat basically. So you see here, it's a sequential one. So you start this, set some variable. That means a question. It's a student-teacher kind of example. So student asks a question, teacher gives the answer, and if I am happy with the answer, there is a condition also. You can add those things over there. I couldn't do that, but you can add that through code also. And then once it is done, you send the message. Otherwise you continue the conversation. So once you say complete, it will end basically. That's the condition. Otherwise, it will continue the conversation. You can keep asking the question to the teacher and do that. So if I just run this workflow, and this can be built using the UI. You don't need to write code. So if I ask this question, who is Sachin Tendulkar? Okay, let me ask this question. Now you can see that where it is going. So all the green areas, that means this step is completed. It came to this if else and then it ended here, and then I'm not sure how can I make it big.
actually for both, if and else it's showing green highlighted.
Because it will check, right? It will check because the teacher says end, complete. Done is complete. If you don't want to do it, so it's just a demo. I said like you can make these things really complex. Your agent may look very simple, but your system can look very complex.
Can I ask?
Four agents are files and some agent has the output that will be input for the other agent.
That's exactly what's happening. So if the student output, so if you see the node, the connection, right? There's a connection. So whatever the prompt I'm getting to the student, it is the output is the input for the teacher. That's how it's joined. Right? So this is how it is connected. So one output, another's input. And you can also decide like whether you would really want to take it as an input or not. It's a design by us. Decide, you need to decide. So you first need to put it in a whiteboard, how the flow would look like, and then based on that you connect it.
So this is dragging down and behind the scene code will be written.
So there is a code.
No, yes. How do you create this graphically, right? From manually putting this blocks and then backend this code is getting generated or?
No, you just click on create. So it's a low code thing. You don't write code. The one which I showed in my Visual Studio Code is the full code. There you need to have the clarity what you are trying to do, and then you write the code. When you write the code, you don't have the visual effect. So you need to know like agent 1 need to call agent 2, agent 2 need to call agent 3, and they need to be sequential. So the first call has to happen for the agent. So that's how you write the code. So you first need to draw somewhere before you write the code.
So quick. Because those boxes, right? You have to create an individual agent of student and teacher.
Yes, you have to recreate that.
Okay.
I did not create those boxes by the way. So that is only for the debugging purpose. So that's the visualization for me to see what is happening. Otherwise in the code I don't see that.
So quick question. So can hallucination happen even when you provide grounding information like
It can happen. So that's why system prompt is important.
Okay, so in that case is reducing the scope is also one of the strategies to reduce hallucination?
Yes. One is that you can set the temperature for the LLM.
Right.
So based on the temperature it can become like generic and then if you say that don't do anything if you are not given, so it will not give you that. So you can also control.
But there's no 100% guarantee.
There is no 100%. But you still have to test it and try it. Yeah.
When you compose that workflow, where is it actually executing?
In the foundry.
In the foundry. So do you have to provide a separate compute layer like Azure?
No, this is called. This is a very good question. So where this agent and where this workflow is running, when I do it in the foundry, there is a service called agent service. It's a PaaS service, which maintains the inline infrastructure, but it's not visible to the end user. So when you create an agent, it is an application at the end of the day, which gets deployed there and then run from there.
And follow-up question, when you use the SDK to invoke this workflow, do you have to execute it on that PaaS service or can you execute it locally as well?
No, I execute it locally.
Okay.
I execute it locally. You can even deploy it in the foundry if you wish to, because if you don't want to, let's say, maintain and manage the infrastructure, or you can just put it in the container image. So you make a Docker file and then deploy the container image and deploy the container image anywhere you want to deploy. That's the easiest way to think of hosting an agent. At the end of the day, it's an application.
We'll stop for the questions now. The next session at 12:15. We'll just take a short 10 minutes break before we have.
You can catch up with me offline also.
Do you have a YouTube channel?